Blue Beetle anatomy explored. Created by the alien conquerors known as the Reach, the Scarabs were living weapons genetically engineered to obey their rules. Over time, one of the Scarabs came into the possession of Dan Garrett on Earth, who could then access the Scarab's powers and turn into the Blue Beetle. Dan gained several powers as the Blue Beetle and used them to fight villains until Ted Kord took over his role as Blue Beetle. Eventually, this mantle was passed down to Jaime Reyes, who discovered the Scarab and gained a number of powers and abilities. As the new Blue Beetle, Jaime had a quite unique physiology, and today we're going to focus on Jaime Reyes' anatomy and also tell you all about the Blue Beetle Scarabs. Before we get into our explanation though, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
This battle. Am I Scarab? No, Jaime Reyes. Once we fought for control, but now...
What are the Blue Beetle Scarabs? The Blue Beetle Scarabs were the brainchild of the alien conquerors known as the Reach, who once came into conflict with the Green Lantern Corps. The two finally drew up a treaty that prohibited the Reach from taking over more planets in the universe. However, the Reach continued using subtle ways to take over the world and genetically engineered hive mind creatures known as the Scarabs. They would leave a Scarab and its database on a planet, where it would activate after a few years and then bond with one of the planet's inhabitants. The Scarab was designed to override its host's personality and create an infiltrator who would work for the Reach. One such Scarab was left on Earth, and legend states that the pharaoh Ka-Efri got his hands on it and then used it to rule over his kingdom. After his death, Ka-Efri was buried along with the Scarab, while thousands of people tried to claim it. Eventually, archaeologist Dan Garrett got his hands on the Scarab, which granted him new powers and weapons. It even turned him into the Blue Beetle Scarab, but it surprisingly didn't bring him under the Reach's control. Is the Blue Beetle Scarab powerful on its own? On its own, the Blue Beetle Scarab contained an array of powers that were stored within its body. The Scarab could move independently, attach itself to a human body, and fly around. It could also absorb powerful blasts of energy that could destroy most humans. The Scarab's body also had sharp pincers that could cut through metal and manipulate vibrational frequencies to open doors or move objects around. In one such instance, the Scarab actually opened the Rock of Eternity that exists outside of space and time. The Scarab could also fight against creatures such as shadow demons, and it had once saved Ted Kord's life when Anti-Monitor's shadow demons tried to kill him.
The hell is that?
How did you get it to do that?
I think he likes me.
How and why did the Blue Beetle Scarab choose Jaime Reyes as a host? Jaime Reyes was a high school student when he first encountered the Scarab in an unused lot. He was pretty intrigued by this strange object, and he even took it home. While Jaime went to sleep, the Scarab came to life and attached itself to Jaime's spine, thereby selecting him as the new Blue Beetle. However, the Scarab was not connected to its database at this point, so it couldn't override Jaime's personality. Over time, Ted Kord's old friend, Booster Gold, was looking for Jaime, since he was the current Blue Beetle and also the only person who could see outside space and time. Jaime then helped Booster, Batman, and Green Lantern's Hal Jordan and John Stewart find Brother Eye by locating his vibrational frequencies. He even destroyed Brother Eye's dimensional stabilizer, which soon knocked him out of orbit. By this time, the Scarab realized that the Green Lanterns were their enemies, and this caused a shift in the frequencies which then transported Jaime and the Scarab into the Bleed. While Jaime thought he had spent a few minutes in the Bleed, a whole year had passed on Earth, and the Peacemaker had arrived to find Scarab's database by then. The database was still buried within the pyramid where Dan located the Scarab, and the database then allowed Peacemaker to transfer information and even track Jaime down. When Jaime finally returned to Earth, he realized that the Scarab had deadly impulses, and he did its best to control its powers and even use them for good. In the meantime, the Peacemaker showed up and revealed the object's true origins, and Jaime was determined to find out more about it. The Reach also had their eye on the Scarab they had left on Earth, and they soon met Jaime and realized that he was not programmed to obey their orders. They further realized that the Scarab was developing its own free will and saw Jaime and the Scarab as a threat. They also tried to destroy them, but Jaime and the Scarab dodged them for a while. Eventually, the Scarab became an independent entity and named itself Kaji Da. Jaime and the Scarab made a plan to defeat the Reach before they attacked Earth. While Jaime let the Reach capture him, the Scarab used this time to hack into the Reach's computers and reveal their schemes to the world. In the meantime, the Reach's negotiator was determined to destroy Earth, but Jaime managed to stop this with the help of his newfound powers, and the Reach soon backed out. Why did the Blue Beetle Scarab become a protector of humanity if it came to conquer the world? While the Blue Beetle Scarab was essentially created to conquer planets, Booster Gold recruited Jaime Reyes to help them out on a mission to get rid of Brother Eye very soon after the Scarab decided that Jaime would be its new host. Furthermore, the Scarab was disconnected from Reach's database and could not override Jaime's personality. While Jaime helped Booster on his mission, he later realized that the Scarab was an active presence in his mind and had malicious intent. Jaime used his willpower to suppress these violent thoughts and apply the Scarab's power for good. Since the Scarab had started developing its own free will, they were free from the Reach's control and had no plans to conquer the world. While the Reach intended to create infiltrators who would be used as living weapons to destroy their home planets, Jaime Reyes managed to expose the Scarab to humanity and also work to protect it. Which incarnation of the Blue Beetle is the most powerful, and why? Dan Garrett was the very first incarnation of the Blue Beetle, and he typically had a bulletproof suit without any special powers. Over time, the Scarab gave him abilities such as flight, super strength, and energy blasts, and it also created a costume of chainmail armor for him. Dan could access these powers by saying Kaji Da, which allowed him to use the powers of the Scarab. The second Blue Beetle, Ted Cord, was Dan's former student. While he didn't have any special powers, he was quite intelligent and could create a lot of technology that aided him in his adventures as the Blue Beetle. Ted was also an athlete, and he possessed a genius-level intellect. Finally, Jaime Reyes' Blue Beetle is considered the most powerful of the three, as he had the support of the activated Scarab. While the first two incarnations acted as superheroes in a suit, Jaime Reyes had several powers and abilities at his disposal, and the Scarab also protected him in challenging situations. Why was Ted Cord, the second Blue Beetle, not as powerful as Jaime Reyes? Ted Cord is probably the most popular Blue Beetle out of the three, but he was sadly not as powerful as Jaime Reyes. Ted was Dan Garrett's former student, and Dan later died in a fight with Ted's evil relative named Jarvis. After Dan's death, his Scarab didn't work for anyone, even after Ted picked up the mantle of Blue Beetle. Ted then relied on his own intellect to create technology to aid him in his fights, and Dan was later even resurrected by his Scarab. After returning to life, Dan was controlled by the Scarab to a greater extent, and he even tried to fight Ted. When the Scarab suggested that Ted could become its new host, Ted saw it as an evil object and rejected it. The Scarab eventually attached itself to Jaime Reyes, while Ted Cord's Blue Beetle never had a chance to use the Scarab's powers. In this manner, his Blue Beetle incarnation was not as powerful as Jaime Reyes. Moreover, when Ted managed to decode the Scarab's programming on his own, his friend Booster Gold's energy interfered with the Scarab's energy. This caused the Scarab to become non-functional, and its abilities were also greatly restricted, which was reflected in Ted Cord's strength as the Blue Beetle. How powerful is the Blue Beetle armor that the Scarab develops for Jaime Reyes? The Scarab has provided Jaime Reyes with powerful armor equipped with several weapons and extended wings. It was quite an impenetrable armor that could even create shields and protect Jaime from external attacks. Moreover, his armor enabled him to breathe underwater and even exist in space and other extreme environments. Jaime Reyes' suit was not just an external coat of armor, but a bioorganic suit infused with his skin. His suit has endless potential, and it can generate a range of weapons from blasters, flamethrowers, tasers, to jetpack-like wings, and so on. One could even notice many forms of insects, such as beetles, on his armor, which formed an external layer of protection. Jaime Reyes also has the ability to create any new power or weapon that he wanted, and the Scarab would provide him with a new gadget. The suit also gives him the ability of mechanokinesis, which essentially gives him the power to control any technology. He could also communicate in any language in the universe with the help of the suit. Blue Beetle's suit also helps him to analyze any battlefield, glimpse into other dimensions, and even detect someone invisible. The Blue Beetle armor also gives him powers such as superhuman strength, durability, and a healing factor. While flying, the armor could manifest a jet engine that allowed him to fly at a faster speed, and it could even create wings that also acted as shields. Jaime's suit of armor could also manipulate energy and generate energy bubbles to protect him or even trap his opponents.
Stay put and stay out of sight. I'll be back soon.
How does the Scarab turn Jaime into a weaponized version of himself? The Scarab is quite a powerful force, and it has undoubtedly helped Jaime to become a weaponized version of himself. With the help of a Scarab, Jaime could turn his hands into sharp claws, bladed weapons, spiked maces, and even plasma cannons that could shoot incredibly powerful blasts of energy. He could also form a huge sword or even create drones out of his armor, and the Scarab truly made him quite invulnerable. Furthermore, Scarab could also absorb energy and then use it to enhance the Blue Beetle's powers, making it even more difficult for Jaime's opponents to defeat him. In the newly released trailer, we can see that the Scarab has even bestowed the Blue Beetle with the ability to create anything from imagination.
It's designed to protect its host.
To say what you want.
Sometimes it does what you want, and sometimes it doesn't.
Body out of here.
How does the Scarab communicate with Jaime Reyes? The Scarab and Jaime Reyes have an established symbiotic synaptic interface that allows the two to communicate. Essentially, the Scarab's nervous system was bonded with Jaime's body, enabling them to exchange their thoughts and emotions. The Scarab's thoughts echoed in Jaime's mind as a voice that sounded like Jaime's mother, and only Jaime could hear this voice in his head. Furthermore, the Scarab could also communicate with other Scarabs with the help of a mind link. If the Scarab wished to establish a link with a Scarab who had also attached itself to a host, then Jaime had to breach this Scarab host's armor to allow the interaction to take place. Does the Scarab grant Jaime Reyes regenerative abilities? The Scarab has given Jaime certain regenerative abilities that allow him to heal his body and can also modify Jaime's body to a given extent. While the extent of this power is unknown, the Scarab could give him extra fingers or reconfigure certain body parts. How does the Blue Beetle Scarab heighten Jaime's situational awareness? The Scarab had the ability to track down anything that had biological, technological, or even mystical energy, and it helped Jaime track down anyone, even if they were miles away. Furthermore, the Scarab could scan the physical conditions of the people that Jaime encountered, and even detect any physical conditions that they were facing. Moreover, the Scarab helped Jaime see any metahuman beings in his surroundings and identify people related to Jaime by blood. It could also identify a person's thought pattern and even analyze energy signatures to determine if some energy patterns come from the same source. The Scarab greatly heightened Jaime's situational awareness and even detected extra-dimensional objects, magical effects, and electricity. The Scarab could scan anything in a 5-mile radius and then communicate these observations to Jaime. Furthermore, the Scarab could detect if there are any changes in the timelines that could have an effect on the Blue Beetle legacy. What are the other major superpowers granted by the Scarab? The Scarab was essentially sentient and could develop its sentience after bonding with a host body even without being connected to the Reach. As a result, the Scarab could create many powers and use its own mind to change its programming. Besides being linked to Jaime and tracking enemies, the Scarab could establish communication systems that enabled Jaime to contact anyone in the world. It could even create clothes and also recycle waste and skin. The Scarab could even hide itself from any 21st century technology, shut cameras or microphones down, and even block any magical attempts to attack them. The Scarab has also created the powerful Blue Beetle armor, which has several features that increase Jaime's strength.
By the statue of Cochise, we'll talk. Just promise me you'll wait till I get there.
Exploring the personality of the Blue Beetle Scarab. While the Scarab was created with the help of technology, its artificial intelligence helped it to develop a personality. Jaime often referred to his Scarab as an inner demon who had an affinity for violence and killing, and it usually suggested offensive action to solve any situation. Sometimes the Scarab would even take control of the situation and take extreme measures without Jaime's approval, and it often even argued with Jaime over these decisions. The Blue Beetle Scarab believed that emotional and personal decisions do not make sense, and that such emotional actions are beneath them. Eventually, it did come to understand Jaime's perspective after it was brought on mode by the Green Beetle and then freed by Zatanna. The Scarab also realized that it preferred to partner with Jaime, despite their disagreements, than work under the Reach's orders as a puppet. What happens if the Blue Beetle Jaime Reyes is infected by the Batman Who Laughs? During one particular story arc, the evil Batman Who Laughs devised a plan to infect 6 superheroes with the same toxins that the Joker had used to infect him. He used batarangs to infect these heroes, and he once cornered Blue Beetle and stabbed him in the neck with an infected batarang. Jaime initially considered this a bad dream, but his body soon changed, and he started hearing a voice inside his head. The voice even told him to fly to school, give away his identity, identity and even attack Ted Kord. He started behaving quite recklessly, and he didn't realize that his behavior was getting more and more aggressive. He even got into a fight with Ghostfire and beat him to the verge of death, while the Batman Who Laughs voice told him to go ahead and kill him. When Ghostfire finally retaliated by blasting Jaime with fire, he fought through the fire and eventually went through a process of metamorphosis that turned him into an evil bug. He could feel himself wielding more power than before, and he soon became the Blue Beetle Who Laughs. He even went against the Justice League and hacked into their computers, and he was so powerful that they couldn't even fight back against him. In his unhinged form, Jaime uses nanotech and his black bodily fluid to defeat both Batman and Superman. Can the Blue Beetle Scarab be removed? When the Reach invaded Earth in 2016 in order to bring the Scarab back under its control and take over Earth, Jaime's Blue Beetle gave complete control to the Scarab to defeat the Reach. However, Jaime was later concerned about the Scarab's influence on him, and Adam even failed to remove it since the Scarab resisted their actions to do so. They felt that there was no way to remove the Scarab without killing Jaime, but the Green Beetle later offered a way to help Jaime. However, Jaime was unaware that the Green Beetle Scarab was on mode with the Reach, and it even took this opportunity to reset Jaime's Blue Beetle Scarab. Jaime was then under the control of Scarab, who was also receiving orders from the Reach. Eventually, Jaime's friends in the team, as well as Zatanna, managed to free both the Green Beetle as well as Blue Beetle by using a ritual that had cleansed the Scarab when it first arrived on Earth. After getting rid of the Reach's control over the Scarab, Jaime and the Blue Beetle Scarab were once again content with returning to their usual partnership, and the Scarab even helped him defeat the Reach. Is the Blue Beetle immortal? The Blue Beetle is quite a powerful character who is nearly immortal, and he's defeated numerous strong opponents such as Superman and even Batman. Moreover, the power of the Scarab is also compared to the power of the Green Lantern rings due to its vast array of abilities. After the Scarab bonds with the Blue Beetle, he gains superhuman powers, and it is even implied that the Blue Beetle's powers are comparable to that of gods. The Blue Beetle can travel through the bleed and go up against mighty opponents and superheroes, which makes him near immortal.
Scarab, stop!
Control that thing, Beetle.
Conclusion. While the Blue Beetle Scarab was initially created with the intent of taking over planets, the Scarab eventually worked to protect humanity and even bestowed the Blue Beetle with incredible powers and abilities. The Blue Beetles also had unique features as well as powerful armor that made them quite invincible, and they are indeed very interesting heroes in the DC universe. As always, if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, be safe out there, and have a marvelous day.
World going!